When SpaceX announced they'd spend tens of billions getting humans to Mars, most people had the same reaction. Are you insane? We're talking about enough money to build entire cities, fund universities for decades, or solve homelessness in multiple states. And yet, somehow, the space industry is absolutely printing money right now. The global space economy is worth nearly $600 billion and growing faster than almost any other sector. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. Almost none of that money comes from the flashy missions we see on the news. While everyone's obsessing over Mars rovers and moon landings, there's this massive invisible economy happening right above our heads that most people have no clue about. I'm talking about an industry that quietly powers your GPS, your weather apps, your internet, and even helps predict natural disasters. Companies are making billions by essentially turning empty space into prime real estate. And the craziest part? The same technology we're developing to get to Mars is creating entirely new ways to make money that didn't exist 5 years ago. So today, we're going to break down the real economics of space. How much does it actually cost to get to Mars, and why are companies willing to spend that much? More importantly, how is space already generating massive profits? And what does that mean for the future of basically everything? Because here's what I discovered after digging into the numbers. The Mars missions that seem impossibly expensive today, they're not just vanity projects for billionaires. They're investments in technologies that are already transforming industries down here on Earth in ways that are making some people extraordinarily wealthy. But first, let's talk about those staggering costs everyone loves to complain about. NASA's current plan to get humans to Mars carries a price tag that'll make your head spin. We're looking at somewhere between $100 and $400 billion over the next 2 decades. That's not a typo. The high-end estimate is nearly $500 billion. To put that in perspective, that's more than the entire GDP of most countries. SpaceX claims they can do it cheaper, maybe around $10 billion for their initial missions. But even Elon Musk admits the full colonization program he envisions could cost upwards of $1 trillion. That's more money than most people can even conceptualize. So why would anyone spend that much money on what seems like an incredibly risky science project? The answer isn't what you think. See, everyone focuses on the destination, but the real value is in the journey. Every single technology we develop to survive on Mars has applications here on Earth that are worth billions. Life support systems, radiation shielding, closed-loop resource recycling, advanced propulsion, autonomous robotics. These aren't just cool space gadgets. They're solutions to problems we have right now. But here's where it gets really interesting. While we're all debating whether Mars missions are worth it, the space economy is already generating massive returns through ventures that are way less glamorous but infinitely more profitable. Take satellite internet. Starlink alone is projected to generate over $30 billion in annual revenue within the next few years. That's just one constellation. There are dozens more being planned. Companies are literally racing to fill the sky with thousands of satellites because they've figured out how to turn orbit into a subscription service. Then there's Earth observation. Farmers are paying for satellite data to optimize their crops. Insurance companies use it to assess damage after natural disasters. Governments monitor everything from deforestation to military movements. What used to be the exclusive domain of spy agencies is now a booming commercial market worth billions, and we haven't even talked about space manufacturing yet. Companies are seriously planning to build factories in orbit where the lack of gravity allows them to create materials that are impossible to make on Earth. Fiber optic cables with zero imperfections, organs grown in microgravity, crystal structures that could revolutionize electronics. The crazy thing is, this is just the beginning. The technologies we're developing for Mars missions are creating entirely new industries we haven't even imagined yet. But here's what nobody talks about. The economics of space aren't just about the companies making money up there. They're about completely reshaping how business works down here. When you can manufacture in zero gravity, mine asteroids for rare metals, and provide internet to literally anywhere on the planet, you're not just creating new products. You're rewriting the rules of scarcity itself. And that brings us to the most important question of all. If space is already this profitable and Mars missions are accelerating the development of these technologies, then maybe the real question isn't whether we can afford to go to Mars. Maybe the question is whether we can afford not to. Because the answer to that question changes everything about how we think about money, technology, and the future of human civilization. Look, I get it. When you see headlines about Mars missions costing hundreds of billions, your first instinct is to think about all the problems we could solve on Earth with that money. But that's exactly the wrong way to think about it. It's like asking why we spent money developing the internet when we had perfectly good telephones. The space economy isn't just making money despite these massive investments. It's making money because of them. Every dollar spent on Mars technology creates a ripple effect that generates multiple dollars in economic value down here on Earth. Here's a perfect example. NASA spent decades developing water recycling systems for space missions. Sounds boring, right? Well, those same systems are now being used to provide clean drinking water in disaster zones, remote communities, and developing countries. The market for advanced water purification is worth over $40 billion annually and growing fast. Or consider the communication satellites that enable your phone to work anywhere on the planet. The GPS that guides your Uber driver, the weather satellites that warn you about hurricanes days in advance. None of this existed 50 years ago. It all came from investments in space technology that seemed impossibly expensive at the time. But the real money isn't just in the technology itself, it's in the data. Every satellite we launch, every sensor we deploy, every camera we point at Earth is generating information that companies will pay enormous amounts to access. Location data, climate data, agricultural data, shipping data, resource data. Information has become the most valuable commodity in the world, and space gives us the ultimate vantage point to collect it. And here's where things get absolutely wild. The asteroid mining industry doesn't even exist yet, but companies are already raising hundreds of millions of dollars to develop the technology. Why? Because a single metallic asteroid contains more platinum than has ever been mined in human history. We're talking about resources worth quintillions of dollars just floating around in space, waiting for someone to figure out how to grab them. The economics are so compelling that even the most conservative investors are starting to pay attention. When you can mine rare earth metals in space instead of destroying entire ecosystems on Earth, when you can manufacture products in zero gravity that are impossible to create otherwise, when you can provide internet to every human on the planet regardless of their location, you're not just building a business. You're building the foundation of a post-scarcity economy. But perhaps the most important thing to understand is this. The companies that master space technology first won't just make money from space. They'll dominate entire industries here on Earth. SpaceX isn't just a rocket company, it's becoming a logistics company that can deliver anything anywhere on the planet in under an hour. Amazon is developing satellite internet not just for rural customers, but to create a global infrastructure that makes their existing businesses even more profitable. The Mars missions everyone complains about, they're forcing us to solve problems that seemed impossible just a few years ago. How do you create oxygen from thin air? How do you grow food in hostile environments? How do you generate power with limited resources? How do you build structures with materials you find locally? These aren't just Mars problems, they're Earth problems. Climate change, resource depletion, food security, energy production. The solutions we develop for Mars colonies could transform how we live on our own planet. So when you see those billion-dollar price tags for Mars missions, remember this. We're not just buying a ticket to another planet. We're investing in technologies that will reshape every industry, create entirely new markets, and potentially solve some of humanity's biggest challenges. The space economy is already worth hundreds of billions, and we're just getting started. The companies and countries that master these technologies won't just survive the next century, they'll define it. And that's why Mars missions aren't just about exploration or scientific curiosity. They're about economic survival in a world where the biggest opportunities and the most valuable resources might not be on Earth at all. The question isn't whether we can afford to go to Mars. The question is whether we can afford to let someone else get there first.